Girl, it ain't that deep. I went because they gave me a scholarship, so. Hey boobs, welcome back to my channel. Go ahead and grab yourself some tea, some wine, some coffee, whatever your drink of choice is. I will be having some wine today, and yes, I filmed this the same day that I did my regretting college video, so same outfit, same drink. Anyways, today's video we are talking about PWIs versus HBCUs and the experiences. If you're wondering like, okay, what's a PWI or what's a HBCU? A PWI is a predominantly white institution, and a HBCU is a historically black college or university. I personally went to a PWI, and I basically went to PWIs my entire life. It wasn't really like on purpose, it was just because when I was growing up in my town, the private schools were like predominantly white, as most private institutions are. And then when I applied for college, I only applied to schools in Southern California, which a lot of people ask me like, oh, you didn't apply anywhere out of state? Like you didn't want to move from California? Girl, no, I sure didn't. I wanted to be near LA, and I just really didn't see the point of going to college somewhere that I didn't want to live. So that was just my personal preference. My grandma really wanted me to go to a HBCU. She was like, so for me to go to Spelman, so for me to go to Clark, Howard, like that was her dream. Like I was supposed to go to Spelman and become an AKA in her eyes, but it didn't happen like that. So my story at my PWI is very interesting. I feel like a lot of people have different opinions about black people attending PWIs, and a lot of them are kind of ridiculous, to be honest. So let's first talk about why I chose to go. Literally, the only reason why I went to the college that I went to was because it was in Southern California and they gave me a scholarship. Literally the only reason. Like my school, I applied to it as a safety school because my guidance counselor told me to. Like I wasn't even gonna apply there. I was so sad I'm going to USC or LMU, like nobody could tell me anything. I was like, those are my two schools, I'm going to one of them, that's it. But they weren't trying to give me no money, so, you know, I just had to go where the money went. Like, and I'm still in debt, so that's the gag on that. Anyway, so I just have seen different things online where people are like, oh, black people who go to PWIs, they're looking for recognition and validation from their white counterparts. Girl, it ain't that deep. I went because they gave me a scholarship, so please. And I didn't even take a tour of the school, nothing. Like I just completely went on faith and hoped it worked out, and if I hated it, I was just gonna transfer to LMU the next year. For me, going to a PWI really wasn't that big of a culture shock because like I said, my whole life I had been in majority white schools. So it wasn't a big deal that I was, you know, the only black person in my class, or, you know, I didn't see a lot of people who looked like me on campus. I was hoping that I would have more diversity just because I'm like, okay, it's college. So because it's a bigger campus, hopefully there'll be more black people around. Not really. Like, black people were less than 2% of the campus population, so there was like literally a handful of us. But I will say that going there, immediately I was like ready to get into BSU, which is Black Student Union if you're not familiar. And that's really where I found like my home base, my family at my school. And for me, BSU is where, you know, you're able to kind of just unwind, you're able to vent. We were able to talk about the things that were bothering us, the microaggressions, the racist things that were going on campus, just everything. It was really just a place where we could come and be ourselves. That BSU to me was like that comfort zone. So I'm really thankful that we had that and that I was able to get involved in that and also really hone my leadership skills in that too, because I was involved in the exec board for that all the way up until I was a senior and then I was president. So I feel like, you know, if I had gone to an HBCU, I don't know if I would have been as involved in BSU, because it's like, okay, if I'm around black people all the time, is BSU really a necessity? Like, do I even need to commit to it? I don't know. So I feel like because I was in a PWI, it made me want to really get involved in my community. It made me want to learn more about my roots and my blackness. And, you know, it just, it really made me want to do more for my community. Like, I was involved in marches, I was involved in protests, like I was doing stuff that, you know, not to say that if I went to an HBCU I wouldn't have done, but I'm not sure. Like, I don't know if being in that environment would have pressed me to be as involved in the Black community as it did when I was at the PWI. Does that make sense? I just feel like, you know, if you're surrounded by Black people and Black culture all the time, you might not necessarily want to like get more involved. And that's just what I've heard other people say was their experience as well. So it's, you know, I could be wrong. You know, comment down below if you think I'm wrong. I'm just saying. You know, and we'll never know because I didn't go to an HBCU, so I don't know what would have happened. And honestly, like I said, if I did go to an HBCU, I probably would have ended up being an AKA and life would have been completely different. But, you know, we'll never know. So that's just kind of how I feel, and you know, I don't regret going to PWI. It was a very interesting experience. You know, a lot of times you're educating people, you are letting people know how ignorant something they've said is. You know, in the classroom, people want you to speak for your entire race. You know, it gets exhausting, honestly, because it's like you're always looked to as the educator. You're always looked to as, you know, the speaker for your whole race of people. And it's like, me and my Black self could have a completely different experience from lots of other Black people. So don't ask me to speak on behalf of my race, you know? Like, it's just, it's not right. Definitely dealt with a lot of ignorance, definitely dealt with having to educate people, definitely dealt with racism on campus, which, I mean, honestly, was it handled in a great way? Not really. Like, our administration was kind of whatever about it, but I mean, what do you expect when the president of the school is like an older white man? So that's why we had to do the work ourselves. Like, it was us in BSU and our allies and the administration that had our back. Like, diversity and equity committee and like the administration like that, they were the ones that had our back and would like really fight for us. The upper administration, like the president, the chancellor, all that, they usually don't care. They, you know, they might write out a little letter, a little email blurb or something, and, you know, say, oh, such and such university doesn't condone any of this behavior. Okay, I mean, what's that really doing? So, you know, like, we were the ones that were really fighting all of that and doing the work. So it was just, it was interesting. It was a very interesting situation to be put in. But at the same time, that's how the world is. Like, when you're in the workforce, these are the things that unfortunately as Black people we have to deal with. So I felt like it also gave me thicker skin and it gave me tools with how to deal with people's microaggressions, how to deal with people's ignorance and just blatant racism. I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was this, I think it was a website and an app called Yik Yak. Comment down below if you remember that. It was so wild. Like, it started, I don't know where it started, but I remember it came to my college and it was popular in a lot of other colleges around the country, I think. And it was basically like this forum where people could just type and say whatever anonymously. And so people would say like the craziest, like most racist stuff. That was like the first time that I really felt like, okay, this is how people really feel. Racists are among us everywhere, like all the time. It's just, they're usually covert about it. But when you have a platform like Yik Yak or something where people can be anonymous, these are the things that they will say. But overall, I would say my experience as a Black woman at a PWI, overall, it was cool. I feel like a lot of people have misconceptions about attending PWIs, and they think that because you're a Black person in a predominantly white space that you have like this horrible experience, you know, this horrible college experience, or that you're like trying to assimilate and like fit in with the white people there. That just wasn't my experience. Like, I wasn't trying to fit in. I just was there, number one, to get my degree, like, period. I mean, that's what you're in college for anyway. And number two, you know, when I found my home, my family in BSU, that's what I was focused on. I was focused on that and my friends and my dance team, and that was my hub. I didn't care who outside of that, you know, wanted me to fit in, or I didn't care about anybody else's opinions. And I will say, being at a PWI, it did force most of the black people to get closer. Like, when there's not a lot of you and you see each other out and about, you know, you want to kind of grab on and become friends and, you know, create a community. So I felt like as a freshman, that's what a lot of upperclassmen did to me, because there weren't many of us and we were trying to stick together. So I felt like, you know, very early on, there was an established community, and I liked that. Had I gone to an HBCU, I don't know. And I'm curious as to how people at HBCUs find their sense of community, because for me, at a PWI, my sense of community was finding other black people. Had I gone to an HBCU, maybe it would have been, you know, I became an AKA, or maybe it would have been people in my major, or maybe, you know what I mean? Like, I just always wonder what that would have been like. So that concludes today's video. I just wanted to talk about my personal experience at a PWI and just kind of the misconceptions that people have. Let me know what your experience was. If you went to a PWI as well, I would love to hear about your experience and what city or state your institution was in. If you went to an HBCU, I would love to hear about your experience as well. So please let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. As you know, I will be posting videos every single Sunday, so make sure you subscribe and have your notifications on so that you don't miss any of them. But until next time, have a beautiful day. Cheers.